Hey all, welcome back. This is Dino the Ops Guy, Production Management and Practice, or Stardew Production Management 101. Maybe it's 201 now. We've been in here long enough. But the idea is it's a production management course, but it starts with the actual doing of production management rather than the teaching of production management. And then we work into what can we learn from the actual doing. And I'll back it up with whatever, literature, pedagogy is required, having taught in both situations. But it's kind of like following the plant manager around, having the plant manager and the head of operations teach you what's going on. This is going to be a different episode, though, from the standpoint that we're going to start with the actual, like what I would teach in an operations course from a formula standpoint, and then work back to say, how does this apply, and in which ways would we use it in Stardew Valley? Before we get to that, that's going to be at the end of this video. We're going to start with Av, and Av has some things going on day 72. So each episode is roughly a day. It's not meant to be specifically, but it has turned out that way. And given that it's day 72, there's still some things to do. So for example, we have to water and harvest crops, or harvest other things as well. Pet and process the animals, process the animal products. As well, today is the day for Stardew Valley Fair. We will sort of get into what Av does in the fair from the standpoint of what goes into the Grange exhibit and how well he does in the competition. But as well, some of the fishing so that we can get the star drop. So this is a good opportunity, but there's still going to be time at the end where, like I said, I'm going to break down what formulas I'd normally teach in the production management realm. So I am going to turn it over to Av. Okay, thanks, Dino. Yeah, so the weather today is going to be, tomorrow's going to be cloudy. And the spirits are very happy today, which really doesn't help us that much because we're going to spend all of our time pretty much at the Stardew Valley Fair. And just going to use the morning to quickly go through all the chores, all the processing that we have to do. We got some corn, we got some eggplant that we're picking up. We got some fairy rose honey. We're going to pet Meow and fill Meow's bowl. We have to pet the animals. We're going to check the fruit cave or the bat cave. And we have some chanterelle, finally. I was wondering when this was going to start paying off. We can use these chanterelle in the dehydrator. But we got the blueberries out of it from before. We're going to affect the apple cell that we have, take it off the tree and into the jars. We're going to milk the cows and the goats because today is an even day. So we have even goats. Even goats like to be milked on even days. That's sort of the deal. Let all the animals to do what they need to do. Let them out. And store everything back. We're going to get to the chickens and the ducks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've decided to start counting them because they like to hide sometimes, and they caught me one time. There was 3 of them hiding together. I thought it was only 2 of them. I thought I outsmarted them, and clearly they had outsmarted me. And that we just don't want them to go without being pet. It can negatively affect their eggs or their duck feathers or their milk or their goat milk, whatever the case. So the Stardew Valley Fair has started. We still have a couple hours to get there, so that's not the end of the world. We're going to finish doing what we are doing. And we may even take some time along the way to get some wood. I guess the only wood would be at the bus stop without going completely out of our way. We're going to water our stuff sideways. And then we're going to sell off everything that we can sell. We're going to keep the chanterelle, though. Those can either be in the dehydrator or in the jars for that matter. So we're going to save those. But other than that, we'll grab all the stuff we need for our Grange exhibit. We've been collecting this for a while, so we're prepared and head off to the festival. First, we'll grab some tree, some wood, and then off to the festival. We are going to, normally I don't show the festivals or the holidays, if you will. We're going to show some of this because some of it can be interesting. Okay, we're at the festival. The first thing we're going to do is fill our exhibit. And we've chosen, I'm now looking at it and realize we don't have any plants per se. So maybe we should have brought that gold cauliflower or one of the gold pumpkins or something. But okay, that's okay. We let Mayor Lewis know that we were going ready for judging. And here the trick is we want to get, well, if possible, 1,000 if we get first place, 1,000 stars if we get first place in the Grange exhibit. And then we'll need another 2,000 to get the star drop. Now, we don't have to get the 2,000 just fishing. If we get high enough, then we can basically just gamble for the balance. But we should have at least like, we missed a fish. We should have at least like 1,500 or so, just so that we're not doing a whole bunch of crazy gambling. But let's say we need another 400. We have 140 after we've bought the prize ticket. Then we can gamble for that 400, and if we don't get it the first time, we can gamble for the 800. But at some point, if odds are against us, then we just have to come back here and do some more fishing. So that's kind of the plan. So we are getting some stars. And you can see there's a perfection. I don't exactly know how this calculation goes, but I know if I get perfect, it works a lot. But congratulations, we got 1,000 stars. And that's kind of how we normally roll. Yeah, I never want to be full sure. The only real benefit, again, is those prize tickets. I think it's $750 or $500 for second place. So it just means a little more fishing. If we don't get first place, that doesn't really bother me. But yeah, and fishing is only 50 G's. So at this point, that's a drop in the bucket for us. So that's not going to be the pain point that we're worried about here. So you'll notice that I moved my picture so that you can see the score and the time, as well as the number of stars when we're on that screen. But the plan is, again, just as quickly as possible, getting enough so that we can get total of 3,000 stars. So 1,000 for the prize ticket and then another 2,000 for the star drop. Once you get the star drop from a certain spot, you won't be able to get it again. So we're just going to get it now. The advantage is it gives us more energy. I think there's another buff too, but it certainly gives more. So that doesn't seem like a lot of stars that we got that time. Yeah, let's go back and do that again. So our total number is 2,020. We need roughly another 1,000 stars. And if we get between 300 and 600 every time, that should mean that we got like 3 more fishing trips or 2 and then some gambling kind of things. So we'll see how that works out. If we can get perfect, even for the smaller fish, that does help us. It seems to be disproportionately helpful. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. You'll notice as soon as I put as soon as I get a bite, I will move the bar up just a little bit because some of the better fish go up quickly while some of them go down quickly too. So that's a tough fish to catch. That's probably a catfish, that one there. Hopefully we can nail the catfish. I think we're going to lose all of our time on this, but either way, it'd be nice to come away with a fish. Perfect is not an option on this one, of course. So if it goes to the bottom, I have an advantage. There we go. That worked out well. And time is up. We're going to get this last fish, see where we end up. And so we got 7 fish is good. Perfection bonus, which seems really good. 500, we're over 3,000. We're good. We don't need to do any gambling at all. So we're going to get the star drop. And we're going to get the prize ticket once the purple haze kind of goes away. And the rest I don't really care about. There's nothing here that we need necessarily. I mean, we could get the rare crow, but I don't want to spend your time on the rare crow. Now I'm off saying hi. We're just going to close it and move ahead. Okay, everyone's left Stardew Valley Fair. We have to close up the coop and the barn. We're going to do our last round of animal products here. As well, it lets out at 10, so we have a bit of time. I'm going to use that time to go down into Cinder Forest and get some wood. And you can kind of see if we've taken wood from cinder forest before, given that we don't have a lot of time, we can't really get a lot of depth into cinder forest. So we may have sort of stolen from this future by using up all the trees. There's a couple trees. There's one. We can get that pine. But I think after that, we have to either cross the bridge or get deep into the curl. Let's cross the bridge. I don't want to take that one because if the timing's not right, it falls and the wood ends up going in the water, and if I don't get it, it doesn't really help me at all. So I pick other trees. Let's say that. So we got time for one more. It's already midnight, and we will get what we can, and then head back. To sell off anything that we need to sell, store anything that we need to store, so we can start tomorrow bright and shiny kind of thing. And I think it's supposed to be windy tomorrow, so bright and shiny maybe isn't the best situation to compare. So we don't need any of the stuff that we used at the grain, so we can sell off the honey for sure. We can put the fish back. We can put the cake back. We can put the diamond back, even though we have a lot of diamonds. There's some advantage to having diamonds, I think, certainly for gifts. But just in case to have them. Oh, and we might as well sell off that fairy rose. We don't need that anymore. Okay, put the cake away, and we're ready for bed. From a sell standpoint, 13,000 is a good sale. Some of it, like I said, was inventory that we were storing for the Stardew Valley Fair. The weather is going to be cloudy tomorrow, and the spirits are somewhat neutral. Back to you, Dino. Okay, thanks, Av. So we did get the plants watered and everything harvested. We did pet the animals and process the animal products. Probably could have gotten one more cycle in if there wasn't the Stardew Valley Fair, but I'm happy to get the two in there. We did the Stardew Valley Fair. We got some free time, and Av used it for foraging, so that worked out very, very well. I do want to get to the formulas, and again, we're starting with this course. Production Management Practice, Stardew Production Management 101, with what happens in the factory, if you will, and then working out. This is going to be a bit of a flip. We're going to start with, this is what I would teach in a class and see how it applies to the factory. So some of the formulas that will or will not be seen in Stardew Valley. Capacity model calculations, Sigma and standard control, statistical control. That gets into like the notion of Six Sigma, total cost of procurement, and EOQ. Academics love EOQ. And the learning curve, which honestly has gone out of fashion, but is so valuable for a lot of things we do. But let's just get right in. So if I'm looking at an operation, I'm using the process map here to sort of explain what's going on. I have op 10. You can see the rectangle that basically that operation takes 6 minutes to produce a part, and you have 6 machines. Operation 15 takes half a minute to produce a part, and it has 1 machine. Operation 20 has 10 minutes per cycle, 9 machines. Operation 30 has 1 minute per cycle and 1 machine. Even if you're an ops specialist, you're not going to be able to look at this and say, I know what's going on, until you make this chart that's down below. So we have Operation 10 has a cycle time of 6 minutes and has 6 machines. So we know based on that the capacity, not counting yield, is going to be the inverse of the cycle time times the number of machines. Now here we're saying it's 6 minutes per cycle. Let's convert it to how many per hour. So the inverse is really, we're going to take it 60 minutes per hour divided by 6 minutes, and it's going to be 10 per hour is going to be your output. So if you have 10 per hour and you have 6 machines, you multiply that through. 6 times 10 is going to be 60 per hour. And then you have to multiply that by the yield. And the yield is basically what percentage of what you made can move forward because it's good enough. It's not defective in any way. And we're saying Op 10 has a yield of 100%, so that's going to be 60 parts per hour. as capacity. We won't get into actual just yet, but that's the theoretical capacity, 60 parts per hour for operation 10. We can do the same calculation in operation 15. It does a half a minute per cycle, and we can just do that in our head. It's going to be 120 per hour. We have one machine which still does 120 per hour times 100% gives us 120 per hour capacity theoretical. And then if we look at operation 20, it's got a cycle time of 10 minutes. That's going to be 6 per hour if we're doing 60 divided by 10. And then multiply that by 9 machines, it's going to be 64, but we only get 93% of those. So the yield is actually a factor here. So when we multiply that through, we're going to end up with 50 good parts per hour that we can advance. And then operation 30, it goes for a 1 minute cycle. It has one machine. It has 100%. Well, 1 minute is just going to be 60 per hour because there's 60 minutes per hour, of course. And then we can multiply that through to get 60 theoretical. Now, what's the difference between actual and theoretical? Well, in Op 10, is there anything that's going to stop us from doing 60? No, we just keep feeding parts to it so it can do 60 parts per hour. No problem. Op 15, there's no reason why we can't do 120 parts per hour. Operation 20 only does 50 parts per hour. And then you look at Operation 60 and you say, well, if it takes product from Operation 50, it has the theoretical capacity of 60 parts per hour, but it's never going to get more than 50 parts per hour as long as Operation 20 has to feed it. Operation 20 is a bottleneck. That's why I have the BN on the side of there. So that's going to be Operation 20 is the bottleneck, and Operation 30 has a theoretical capacity of 60 parts per hour and an actual capacity of 50 parts per hour because it's constrained by 20. If for some reason Op 30 is down for an hour, as long as we can build up that inventory, it can speed up to 60 parts per hour until it works through that inventory, and then it's going to be back constrained at 50 parts per hour. Now, the question really should be sort of looking back, well, should we really be running Operation 10 and Operation 15 faster than 50 parts per hour? And if we do, what that does is it builds up inventory. Inventory in this situation is the upside down triangles. So we have raw inventory in front of Operation 10. We have raw inventory in front of Operation 15. We're assuming they're essentially infinite and leaving procurement to make sure, supply chain to make sure that it's always there. Operation 10 is the inventory between, WIP 10 is the inventory between Operation 10 and Operation 20. If Operation 10 goes faster than Operation 20, even at 60 to 50 or 10 parts per hour extra, those 10 parts per hour we're going to accumulate in that WIP 10 until it's just huge. And then it starts to become problems because of we don't have room, or there's obsolescence issues. They get old, or they get damaged, or they get dirty, whatever the case. So a lot of times we're going to look at the bottleneck in Operation 20 and say, we don't want the other ones to go that much faster. In fact, let's put some capacity constraints to say there's a minimum amount of buffer we want in those WIP 10 and WIP 15 to make sure that Op 20 always has the opportunity to run. But once we hit that buffer level, we're not going to go any faster because it just creates inventory that cannot get to the customer any faster. So that is the actual formula, the way we calculate, if you call it a formula, the way we calculate the capacity model. And that's pretty important. We use that in Stardew Valley all the time. Maybe not that explicitly, but the formula really is the inverse of cycle time. So 60 minutes per hour divided by whether it's 6 minutes or 0.5 minutes or 10 minutes to give us the unit capacity per hour, multiplied by the number of machines to give us the operation capacity per hour, multiplied by the yield to give us the actual, or the sort of output capacity per hour of good parts. And then we look at what's going on with the arrows to say what feeds what gets to what. And if any operation is choked or starved, then it's going to essentially see the same capacity as the bottleneck. So that is the simple capacity model. And we can go through, and I was just saying about how if we go too long at Op 10 and Op 15 faster than the bottleneck, then those two triangles tend to fill up quickly to the point where they actually cause a lot of disruption. And I've had a lot of discussions with operations people in the university realm and the academic realm. And everyone really, if they have any practical experience at all, some don't. They will say you can always tell the bottleneck by where the inventory is. And in this case, you kind of look at it and say, well, of course, we see the operation 20 being the bottleneck because the whip buildup, if we run without control, is going to be at whip 10 and whip 15. So, of course, op 20 is the bottleneck. But that's actually a bad indicator from the standpoint that even if we, let's say, fix the bottleneck. Let's say we buy another machine for operation 20. So now there are 11. So if we take 10, it's going to be 6 per minute, 6 per hour. Multiplied by 11 now, it's going to be 66 per hour. 93% of that gives us 61 per hour. Well, that's better than the 60 per hour that is in op 30. So op 30 is actually now going to be the bottleneck. I got the BN in the wrong spot there. That's sort of an old thing. But now if op 30 is the bottleneck, we still have a lot of inventory on whip 15. And that's because it still is feeding an operation that is choked by the bottleneck, op 20. And in this case, the whip 15 does not indicate the bottleneck at all. It indicates that there is a flow problem, but we would have to get into the flow problem to understand it's not op 20 that's the bottleneck, it's actually op 30. And whip 15 is a poor indicator of what's going on. So the other thing we'd want to look at is first time through quality. And this is a good place to look at it because we can look and say, if we multiply all our yields together, op 10 has 100, op 15 has 100, op 20 has 93, op 30 has 100. And look at all of the arrow lines. So one of the arrow lines, or one of the flow lines, if you will, is 10 to 20 to 30. That will give me a 93% first time through, or 15 to 20 to 30 will also give me a 93% first time through. So the first time through is really 93%, the worst of those. So two things in here. One is always go towards capacity. Don't look at cycle time. Use cycle time to get capacity. If you're going to use inventory numbers, you can use Little's Law. We didn't talk about it here, but this is a good place where I would introduce it in a class to say, if we know the rate and we know how much inventory we have, we know how long it takes for that inventory to dissipate. And a first time through quality is going to be important. So those three formulas. So the second one is sigma and statistical control. So typically we use parametric stats. Basically, that means that we rely on the bell curve. And the bell curve is perfect for situations with natural phenomena that builds up a lot. So if I'm looking at the height of an adult male, a 30-year-old male, let's say, there's a lot of variables that all of them have to do with, bone length and slouchiness and all these things, which are typically natural phenomena. So when you add them all up, you get a nice proper bell curve. That's not always the case. Sometimes we will count defects, and that's not going to give us a bell curve necessarily. Probably give us a Poisson distribution. And there's other situations that will come up. But for the most part, natural phenomena can be explained by a bell curve, so it's very useful. And once we look at the bell curve, or parametric stats, we can say within one standard deviation from the mean, we get 68% of the samples. So if I know the mean is, in this case, 90, and the standard deviation is, I believe, 2, then we can say between 88 and 92, we're going to get 68%. So there's only essentially 14% on each side, or what's that, 12, 32, 16% on each side that is going to be outside of that first standard deviation. If we look at the second standard deviation, you can see that little bigger chunk, and that 95% is going to be between 86 and 94, or 2 standard deviations in either direction from the mean. And then 99.9973 is going to be within 3, etc. It gets bigger and bigger. And that tells us if we can move basically the standard deviation smaller to get closer to the mean, to squeeze that formula, we can be more and more accurate or resistant to to any issues of tolerance. So in this case, we have the black lines saying that we don't want anything less than anything more than 95 or anything less than 85. So plus or minus 5 from that 90 mean. So in this case, it looks like we're like 2.5 sigma. So we're into the 99 percentile are going to be passing, and potentially 1% is going to be outside of that realm, and we will have to take it away as a defect. But if we could squeeze that, if we can take our standard deviation from a 2 to a 1 by creating less variability and more stability, then we can get it. The formula here is our sigma level is going to equal the distance from mean to the tolerance, the nearest tolerance, divided by the process standard deviation. In the diagram that I'm showing you there, my distance to the tolerance is going to be the same whether we go from 90 to 85 or from 90 to 95. If for some reason our mean is, let's say, 96, then we would use the difference between 96 and 100. Sorry, if it was 91, let's say, then we use the difference between 91 and 96, and not the difference between 91 and 85 and 95. Yeah. 91 to 95 versus 91 to 85. We'd always take the shortest for that calculation. So yeah, if we could bring that in. Now, that looks pretty stable, looks pretty good. We're only losing about 1%. If we wanted to look at the gold standard, that would be 6 sigma, and we use that little curly small Greek letter sigma there to show that. And that would represent only having 3.4 defects per million sample. Really, it's 4.5 sigma, because we're assuming that if you have a 6 sigma process, sometimes it drifts over time. So we're leaving that 1.5 shift over time in there. So even a 4.5 sigma static or a 6 sigma dynamic is going to reduce our defects to 3.4 parts per million. So the third one we're going to look at is total cost of procurement and EOQ, economic order quantity. So if I'm buying, let's say, copy paper and I'm getting 10 reams of it, it costs $10 per a ream, and annual demand is 52 reams per year, or 1 per week. And the setup cost, that's the cost that we use that could initiate it. And if we're looking at reams of paper, it's the cost of putting in our order and having it delivered, kind of thing. So in this case, we're saying anytime we put in an order, and delivery fee total is going to be $5. Unit holding cost, how much does it cost to actually store this stuff? And we're saying each unit's going to cost us $2 a week to store. We could argue about the numbers, but they're just arbitrary for now. So if we looked at how much should we order, if every time we order we get a $5 charge, and every box that we store costs us $2 a week, in that situation, we can do the calculation. EOQ equals 2ds over h square root. And once we calculate that out for these data, we are going to get 16.2. Now, nobody's going to order 1.2. It's going to be either 16 or 17. And sometimes in courses, when I'm teaching this in a class, people will get all wigged out about, should we go up? Should we go down? Should it always be the average? Or always be a natural rounding? Should we round up? And the answer is, I don't care. And let me show you why I don't care. So if we do the 16, you can see what's going to happen in inventory. We're going to have 16 on the shelf, and then a week later, we're going to have 15 on the shelf, and then 14, and then once we get down to 1 left on the shelf, we order so that the next week we have 16 on the shelf and 15. So you can see that sawtooth that's developing. In theory of how things are going to happen, we'll probably have a buffer level at the bottom of those triangles, just so that we don't completely run out. But that sort of represents that there's this formula for EOQ, and it comes from the total cost of procurement. So if I'm looking over a year, if I'm going to order 52 of these things, then I'm going to end up spending 520, or 52 times that I need per year, times 10 each. So that's sort of the baseline. That's that red line there for material, that we need at least that much. After that, we can look at the green bars, and those are our setup costs. If we order only one at a time, then we are going to have 52 costs of setup. So we put in an order for one, we pay $5. We put in another order of one, we pay another $5. We're going to spend north of $200 if we do an order of one. We're going to spend half of that if we do an order of two, a third of that if we order three, and you can see that green bar starts to go down. But as you get more orders, the bigger orders, then you're going to see those purple bars coming up, because the more we order, the more we have to store. So really the economic order quantity, the ERQ, is a balance between these two. How do you balance the cost of setup versus the cost of storage? And in this case, we have that light blue line, which really, the top line, which really indicates what would the total cost be if our order was one, around 800. If it was three, then it's around 600, and then so on. What you find is that bottom is pretty flat. So when we go back to the 16.12, if we order 16 or 17 or even 20, it's not really going to change that much. This is a formula where the number can be very precise, but doesn't really have to be. As long as you're in the neighborhood, you're going to be okay, right? So we can settle on, if it's 16.2 and we find that there's exactly room for 20, 20 isn't going to kill us. 25 isn't going to kill us, right? The 16.2 is just sort of a thumb in the air. Let's keep it kind of close to that kind of thing, right? So sometimes we will flip this around, certainly when we're doing lean manufacturing, to say, if I look at the setup cost of, let's say, running a product, well, that includes the time that the machine is going to be down so that we can, let's say, go from red pens to blue pens or whatever the changeover has to be on the machine. And we can say, well, we're purposely doing, let's say, an order of 1,000 because of the time that it requires, that setup time, and because of the holding time on the other side. But let's just leave the holding time as it is for now. And let's say, what if I didn't want to do 1,000? What if I wanted to do 500 or 200? How low would that setup cost have to be? And interpret that to how fast do we have to do it? If it takes us 8 hours and it gives us this EOQ of 1,000, if we do it in 4 hours, does that help us? Well, this curve kind of shows the setup cost versus order quantity desired for the situation we gave with the paper product. So we know that the setup cost is 5, so it works out to 16.12 is going to be the optimum. But if we wanted to take that down to say, I want, basically the optimum to be 10, right? How much does that setup cost have to be? $2. So if we can find another company that can do it for $2, we can go down to 10 and be comfortable even with our existing holding costs. So that's kind of the way that function works. If you have any questions about these, you can leave these in the comments and we can get back to them. The last one is learning curve. People typically get better with practice, but it's a logarithmic rather than a linear approach. So for example, if I go from the first time I do something, whether it's bake a cake or put up a tent or work through a math problem, the first time it's going to take so long. The second time will be some advantage from that, some percentage of that, let's say. Well, the third time I don't get the same percentage drop. But with the fourth, I actually, if you look at how much I get from the from the second to the fourth, it's about the advantage on a percentage basis that I got from the first to the second. And every doubling thereafter, I get that same drop. So it becomes a logarithmic curve. So the learning curve formula here is Y being the cost, whether it's direct hours or time or whatever the case you want to look at, or in some cases setup effort or whatever. The time that is required for specifically the I product. So the first one I is going to be 1, the second one I is going to be 2. If we're looking for the 100th product, it's going to be I at Y sub 100, etc. The formula is going to be A times I raised to the minus B, where I is a cumulative number of products starting at 1 from the beginning. A is the parameter equal to how much it would take you, whether it's cost or hours or whatever the case, for the first one. And then B is some parameter. It does not mathematically work nicely to get to a percentage, but we can consider on an 80% learning curve between the first and second operation, we got saved 20% or got down to 80% of that. Between the first and fourth, or between the second and fourth, we got another 80, or between the first and fourth, we got a 64 or a 36% reduction, etc. So you can kind of see that curve. It's actually it's best sort of plotted on log paper, because then it becomes a straight line. So then you can actually see what's happening in a direction that we start at 100, and then we go down to, after the fourth one, 64, and then so on and so on and so on and so on. So this really illustrates what's going on, and it sounds a bit obscure. It's best used when we're into projects, or let's say, if you're in the defense industry, so you're doing a plane for the first time, or a targeting system for the first time. Well, by the time you get to the second time, you're going to be better. The fourth time, you're going to be better again, etc. So you can figure out, if we're going to do 10,000 of these, how much are we going to end up using based on the first time we did it? It took us 6 hours, kind of thing. So it's a good calculation that way. But it's even better when you get to sort of the philosophical side, to say, most companies, pretty much everyone I've been at, they want to basically have a reduction of, we need a 5% reduction every year, a 10% reduction every year. And that's just completely arbitrary. But if you understood the learning curve, if you understood how often you had been doing this, if you understood how many more you're going to do next year, you can actually put some robust numbers behind such things. So it's not just an arbitrary 5% or 10%. You can actually get down to, this is a robust expectation. So, and nobody seems to do that, because nobody understands the learning curve, really. Like I said, it's completely out of fashion for the most part, but it does have a lot of value if you understand what's going on. So hopefully you're getting something out of that. This is Dino the Ops Guy, sort of filling you in on what's going on in the academic sense, as it applies to the Stardew Valley learning curve. I was using a bit of the learning curve, kind of thinking through how long it takes us to water the plants and what pattern we're using, etc. And there's a few other situations where learning curve makes sense. EOQ doesn't really have a lot of sense. I mean, I started thinking, if you look at it costs $500 to get to Calico Desert. That's a setup cost. But then there really isn't a holding cost, that sort of thing. So really the big winner, the Six Sigma stuff, we're not really getting into a lot of that quality in that sense. But the capacity model, that comes up a lot in Stardew Valley. So you're going to see me do it again and again. But the problem is it doesn't ever look like the same formula. It looks like we're doing it new every time. And that's kind of the way operations works. That's kind of the way production management works. So hopefully you're getting a lot out of this. Hope to see you next episode, where we'll give Av back some of his time. And if you have any comments, please, love to hear them. Put them in the comment section. This is Dino the Ops Guy, signing off.